Hello and welcome to An Idol Called Food. I'm your host, JT Tapias, and in today's episode, we're going to be speaking about some hard truths when it comes to your health, wealth, and relationships. But before we get started, I'd like to speak with you about supplements that make a massive difference in your health, in your recovery, and you're going to see tenfold results with your workouts if you actually start bringing in the right nutrients. Go to EYBplanfuel.com, EYBplanfuel.com, supplements that allow you to show up like a superstar every single time. Let's jump right into it. And today we're going to be speaking about hard truths when it comes to your health, your wealth, and your relationships. I get to speak to a lot of people on a daily basis, and it seems like every other person that I speak with has a similar challenge. Now, I want to start off speaking about health because that's my realm, right? This is what I'm speaking to these people about. And I hear the same I hear the same theme with all of these people I speak to. They have a ton of excuses around why they haven't been able to achieve their goals. Now, I want to be respectful and say that they're, oftentimes it's not excuses and sometimes it's true. Some of the things that are happening are very real, right? People have issues. People have imbalances. People have, bad habits. They don't want it to be like that, but they've kind of defaulted into these particular things and now they're in trouble. But here's what I mean by excuses. When it comes to weight loss, I hear people say all the time, I'm just big boned. I'm from Italy. I'm from Germany. You just don't get how we eat, JT. I'm built different. I'm built in a certain way. And I listen to people and I hear, what they're saying. And I just stay very quiet because I know exactly what they're going to say. Everyone pretty much repeats the same reasons why they believe they can't lose weight. They've been on all these different diets. They've yo-yo dieted. They lose weight. The weight comes back on, or they get to a certain set point where they lose 25, 30 pounds. And then they're like, I don't lose any more weight past 25, 30 pounds. As if there were this specific rule and where your body would just shut down and stop releasing weight after a certain weight, after losing a certain weight. Now, obviously that sounds silly and we know that that's not true. So then the question is, well, how does one, how does this happen? How does one actually get into this kind of situation where every single time they stop at 25, 30 pounds? Well, I've said this many, many times on this podcast, and I've said it many times in different episodes that we are an accumulation of stories. And the stories we tell ourselves become very real in our lives. The results, the things that we materialize are a byproduct of these stories that we tell ourselves. So if we're telling ourselves a story that we just don't release more than 25, 30 pounds, our subconscious mind is super powerful and it'll do anything to make sure that what you're saying actually comes to fruition, right? The brain wants to make sure that you're sane. And then if you say, I only lose 25, 30 pounds, or I only lose 5 or 10 pounds, that's exactly what the subconscious brain is going to receive as a signal. And that's what most likely you're going to do in the form of habits. Same thing happens with wealth, right? We see people that say, well, you just don't understand my past. I grew up in poverty. My mom, I grew up with all this conditioning where my mom said that, money didn't grow on trees and that I was always going to be poor. And, I've always had minimum wage jobs and how am I ever going to get out of this situation? And I have bad credit and I have debt and I have all these things. And the truth is, yes, those things may be true, but the truth of the matter is that until, right, you continue, or until you stop telling yourself these stories and you continue perpetuating these stories day after day after day and telling your subconscious mind that that's who you are, then those are the results you're going to have in your life. Same thing happens with relationships. I hear it all the time. I hear people that are like, well, I just always get into these really, really bad relationships and it's always the same thing. And people are verbally abusive and physically abusive and everyone takes advantage of me. And the question is, well, do you pick these people? And the answer, of course, is yes, right? You need two to tango, right? So then how do we resolve this issue? Because the big argument, especially inside of the world of weight loss, is that, it's either hormones or it's either, you have this pre-genetic disposition, or maybe you're too old, or, I'm no longer in my 20s and my 30s. I'm 40, 50 as if that were old. or I have 3 or 4 kids. You don't understand. My body's never going to go back to normal. And people continue to say these things. And here's what's actually happening when you're saying these things. You can't actually come up with a solution. You can't actually start incorporating habits, good habits, new habits, empowering habits that are actually going to move you in the right direction, because you're going to be stuck in your story, and getting outside of your comfort zone is so incredibly hard that it's just easier to stay here and complain and come up with excuses. And then, of course, the more you perpetuate these excuses in your subconscious mind, the more they play out, and the more you confirm that what you're hearing in between your ears is actually really happening, and that's your reality. We got to break that reality. We got to get out of that story. And one of the fastest ways we do that is by incorporating powerful habits. If you are lagging in your health, in your wealth, in your relationship, it's simply a byproduct of lagging habits. It has nothing to do with predispositions. It has nothing to do with luck. It has nothing to do with fate. It is literally the habits that you are executing on or not. So the main things I hear in people in these 3 areas, the main reasons why I think most people in these fail in these areas, in their health and their wealth and their relationships, is organizational skills. I see this over and over and over when it comes to weight loss. People that are struggling with weight are people that generally go to bed past 11 o'clock. They have bad habits, bad TV habits, right? They're watching TV. They're binge watching Netflix. They are playing video games. They go out. They drink on the weekends. They destroy their bodies. Monday, they have to get up and go back to their 60, 70 hour a week job. And they're just in this perpetual cycle, and they can never get out of it. So organizational skills, they just haven't organized their life in a way where they're prioritizing things that are important. Number 2, they have dependencies. They have dependencies because what we don't understand is that when we do something, even if it's not a positive action, and we reinforce that action, we actually deep down are rewarded, because our brain is telling us that what we're thinking and what we're doing is very true. And that is rewarding because the brain likes congruency. Okay. So we have these dependencies. So every time you say you're not going to eat something, you go eat it and you spike insulin, you ignite your addictions again, your dependencies again, and then you just start all over again. It takes 3 days to overcome when you light up your brain from a big insulin jolt, right? When it comes to wealth, the same thing happens. I'm going to save money, and then next thing you know, you're going on this shopping spree. You're buying things you shouldn't be buying. You're buying things on Amazon. You're buying things you don't need because you need a dopamine hit. That's exactly why you're buying these things. You need a dopamine hit. You don't feel good inside. Your life isn't looking the way you want it to look. So you go online and you buy things, or you go to the mall and you do some shopping therapy. And the next thing you know, you're broke again, and you're wondering why you can never save money and why you can never get ahead. Relationships, same thing. You meet someone, you see a bunch of red flags, and you still go out for a second date and a third date. And next thing you know, you're emotionally involved with this person. And now that relationship is a disaster when you first saw the red flags. You saw that this person was a project. But sometimes when we have dysfunctionalities, we have a tendency to pick other people that have those as well, because they complement us and because we actually want to offer those people what we really need. And it just becomes a mess. Once again, it's the habits, it's the stories, it's the lack of organization, it's those dependencies that we have because we need dopamine hits. And then number 3 is we are communal learners. We learn from each other. So when it comes to health, wealth, and relationships, if we grew up in a home where our parents were overweight, most likely we will be overweight. If we grew up in a home where saving and investing wasn't a priority, then most likely as an adult, you most likely will do the same because we learn from each other. We're communal learners. If you saw your parents have a horrible relationship, then you probably have a lot of reservations when it comes to relationships, and then you now go into these relationships and you're hesitant and you're guarded and you have all this baggage, and you go into the relationship and the relationship fails. So we're communal learners. So then the question is, okay, so I have lack of organizational skills. I have dependencies. I'm a communal learner. I'm 25, 35, 45. How do I reboot myself so that my life can start looking different, so that I can be organized, so that I can get rid of my dependencies, so that the things that I learned from my parents as a communal learner, I can reset my thinking and actually get better results in my life, right? How do I do that? So I'm glad you asked. And I'm going to be biased because I'm a coach. I sell coaching. But I'm going to say that the number one thing you need to do if you need organizational skills is you need to hire a coach. Someone that can give you a system, someone that can give you a structure, someone that can set a ton of habits in the direction of the things that you're trying to bring to fruition. If you have dependencies, but you haven't realized it, by the way, this happens all the time. I tell people that they have dependencies, that they're addicted to food, and they look at me like I have 4 heads. But then when we start taking inventory, we realize that, yes, you are constantly looking for dopamine hits. Every time you're sad, bored, unhappy for whatever reason, you're reaching for some food. And we realize that you have a dependency, an emotional dependency to food. So we need to take inventory of what these dependencies are. If they're with food, if they are with shopping and spending money and not being able to save, or if they're in relationships, you like to get into toxic relationships because, some way, somehow they make you feel normal because you are also experiencing some issues. So we need to take inventory. I think lastly, we need to become sick and tired of the way we've lived if there's been dysfunctionality all of our lives. If you grew up in a dysfunctional home and you're sick and tired of how you felt when you were a kid, you don't want to repeat the same mistakes. You don't want to pass those mistakes on to your kids, and you're sick and tired, then and only then are you willing to do something, because most people are willing to do more out of desperation than they are out of inspiration. So I just want to recap here because I think this is really important. I think the biggest challenge people deal with is lack of organizational skills. They battle dependencies, and we are communal learners, which should be a pro or a con. But let's just say in this particular case, oftentimes we learn all the bad habits from our parents, from our circle of influence, and now we're in trouble. So if that's the case and you're on that boat, then number one, you need to hire a coach that can help you get organized, that can create some systematic habits in your life so that you can bring your goals to fruition. You need to take inventory of the things that, you have to get very real with yourself, right? You have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, what am I dependent on? What is it that I need every single time that I'm bored, sad, upset? Am I reaching for food? Am I going shopping? Am I getting into bad relationships? Am I promiscuous? Right? And then you got to get sick and tired of that. And once you get sick and tired of that, now you get the coach, you get some clarity, you take the inventory. You're sick and tired of that. You don't want to do that again. And now you start to create different stories for yourself that actually support the thing that you're trying to build for your life. I know that's a lot of work. I know that's very muddy because there's just a lot there. But I want you to I want to encourage you. I want you to think through these things. Okay. I want you to be introspective about these things and give what I just said the benefit of the doubt. And if you're experiencing any of these issues, remember, you need a coach. You need to take inventory, and you need to get to the point of being sick and tired of being sick and tired so that you can actually do something once and for all. I hope you enjoyed this podcast episode on hard truths about your health, your wealth, and your relationships. My name is JT Tapias with an idol called food. I hope you enjoyed it. More importantly, I hope you take action. I'll talk to you guys soon. Ciao, ciao.